Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. This episode will be discussing the weird phenomenon of not just the Wayans family, but Damon Wayans himself, probably the biggest of the whole family. And it's so weird that it was like a dynasty for a while. But I bet you kids now have no idea who any of the Wayans are.
I don't know. I mean, Marlon's been getting a lot of foot traffic recently because he's kind of come to accept their trans son, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Marlon and maybe Damon's son, because he was on what is it, the New Girl, I think, was on for a while, and Let's Be Cops.
Oh yeah.
Oh, by the way, I should introduce ourselves. I'm Michael. That's Tony.
Hello.
It's really interesting because before in Living Color we had I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which did fairly well, especially for a very low budget movie with no names in it. And then they got in Living Color, and it seems like almost instantaneously everybody became a household name. Not necessarily a star, but everybody knew who they were.
Yeah, they were appearing in a lot of things. I mean, there was the Wayne Brothers show, there was Shaft, there was Blank Man, there was a bunch of stuff that all the Wayans were just turning out.
Yeah, well, and also you have Jim Carrey, you had David Alan Grier, trying to remember, I know one of the girls from Living Single was on there for a year or two, but it seemed like that was the one that was taking the heat away from Saturday Night Live. But within a couple years, everything changed. With them becoming movie stars, household names, all of a sudden the huge offers started to come in, and everybody started leaving the show. And so while it seemed like it was such a huge deal, it only lasted 5 seasons, and I really think the only reason it held on for that last season is Jim Carrey was paid a massive amount to stick around for another year, and they paid Chris Rock to show up for 6 or 7 episodes.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I remember it was such a huge phenomenon with me growing up, but it really was only a short-lived thing. Which is oddly, between you and me, like a huge thing in our entire generation is like, oh, this is great. Like 3 seasons. What do you mean 3 seasons? I remember watching it all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I read the book. It's called Homie Don't Play That. It's about the history of In Living Color. And by season 2, there's all these offers coming in for Keenan to do movies, like write and direct. So by the time season 3 kicks in, he's no longer interested. He's barely involved in any of the show. He's just like a masthead. Damon is gone because Last Boy Scout and Mo Money really made him an A-lister. And it seemed like the crew was kind of fragmented by that point, and so they just struggled through. I know they added Marlon and Sean in season 3, because remember Sean was the DJ for the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, he just sort of like floating in the back.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, I feel like, everybody else kind of hung around till it ended, but what really broke big was the fact that Damon Wayans, out of, basically no real movie history. I mean, he had small parts here and there, and he was on 1 season of SNL, but he's given the co-lead in this massive Bruce Willis action comedy called The Last Boy Scout, and I can see what they were thinking. It worked 10 years earlier with Eddie Murphy. His very first movie was a massive hit, 48 Hours.
Yeah.
But I think what is missing is, there's the stench of Hudson Hawk right now, and, Bruce Willis really, he had a stench on him because of that, and I don't think people were really ready to see him in another movie so quick, especially if it was an action comedy. And I think,
I am so mad about that because I hate that it got so much hate for such a fun movie because I really liked Hudson Hawk. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
When you know the history of the movie, though, that it's supposed to be a $30 million movie and that the script was completely set and they just kept changing it, and Bruce was becoming a pain in the ass. And, they're adding writers, they're flying people to Italy or whatever at the last moment, try to come up with something, and it's just exhausting for everybody involved. So then it became a $50 million movie that only made 17. So I think it's more than just the movie stinking. I think everybody had heard about his ego.
That's a good point. I mean, his ego was pretty well hidden for a while, but Hudson Hawk was the first leak towards hey, he's kind of a prima donna, and
yeah,
once it came out, it really came out.
Yeah, and Bruce and Damon did not get along on the set at all. They basically hated each other through this because Bruce just kept talking down to Damon like he wasn't worthy of being on the screen with him, which is insulting as hell.
Yeah.
And and it just really rubbed Damon raw, and so he started fighting back against Bruce, throughout the production and just dragging it out. Another one of those where I believe it was supposed to be like a 35, 40 million, and just kept adding more to it because of just difficulties with the production. When I was a teenager, for my birthday, I asked my dad to take me to this. And I loved it. But as I get older, I find this movie to actually be like, oh, we're watching the worst people on the planet. These are the most miserable fucks in history, and I'm supposed to spend an hour and a half with them. No, nothing. Do you disagree?
No. Honestly, like you're not wrong. Like, and I find that with a lot of things where I'm like, oh, I love this as a kid, and then you find out that they're just garbage people, and I'm like, I can't watch this anymore because it hurts me personally to see these people making money on my money.
Yeah. Well, it's not just no. I meant the characters themselves.
But true.
Yeah,
I just like characters like this very unlikable.
Yeah, I was like, wow, everybody's yelling at each other and they all hate each other's guts. It's funny, the only likable person in this whole movie is the guy who fucked Bruce Willis's wife.
I'm gonna say, like him and the stripper girlfriend who died, like those were the only people I actually kind of like cared anything about.
Right? And they killed them immediately. This is written by Shane Black, and of course Shane Black is well known now. At the time, he wasn't really a household name, but I think Iron Man 3 kind of changed everything. Sadly, he's never been able to capture that same magic financially. But I gotta tell you, his detective movie, the Nice Guys, is so damn good.
Oh, like I really need to watch that. Like I've heard nothing but good things, and I never got around to it because it never seemed to click for me for some reason.
Well, it's in our shared account, so you can watch it anytime you want. So I noticed this about Shane Black is he really does like detective movies. After this, he does Ricochet. He does cleanup work on that, and that was a really dark movie too. But then he does Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, even The Long Kiss Goodnight has a strong detective element in Samuel L. Jackson's character.
That's true, yeah. I guess it does lean towards those detective styles.
Maybe it's because it has a pulpy nature to it and it's kind of lurid, and you can have really creative dialogue, which he's very good at. Dialogue that sometimes with time doesn't hold up too well to how culture has changed. But you're like, oh shit, he did just write. Like in Predator, he writes all those fucking huge pussy jokes. Crazy. I will say this. When it comes to movies where you have to have a villain to make the hero seem even greater, you have to have a really good villain. And I gotta tell you, these are the shittiest of shit villains. These guys are the kings of you got the redneck guy, Shelley Marconi, and oh my god, you just want to smash his face in. There's, Taylor Negron, mostly known for comedy. And he plays just such a greasy, Euro trash bad guy in this. My favorite line in this, he goes, the cop comes up to his car and goes, is there a problem, officer? Yeah, there's too many bullets in this gun. It's so campy. I love it. And then there's that one dude. Okay, so I remember him mostly from Waterworld. His name is Kim Coates. He always plays a shithead. But he's in the one where he's beating the shit out of Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis tells him that if you hit me one more time, I'm going to kill you. And he's just got this shit-eating grin on his face. He punches him again. He goes, boom, baby! And then, shoves his nose right into his brain, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate that is anymore. I know for a while in the 90s, that was oh, yeah, you kill somebody by, breaking the cartilage in their nose and shoving it to their brain. I'm like, is that true, or is that just a legend that people kind of just shifted onto and worked through? Because if that was as accurate, I would imagine you'd see it in a lot more movies up to current, and it disappeared as an action trope.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they saw Roadhouse, because it's the same producer, Joel Silver, and he said, okay, we got to top Roadhouse, so he rips his throat out. Again, I don't know if that's even possible. That, it just seemed like a one-up, okay, we got to do something even crazier.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing about this film is, like you said, they just had, really obnoxiously bad guys with no real like rationale behind it other than just we need somebody that makes the good guys not be bad guys.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to remember. At the beginning of it, you get introduced to Billy Blanks. Guys, he was sort of a legitimate actor before he started doing all the low budget martial arts movies, which are still fun, but they're not studio level stuff. But I can't remember, why does Billy Cole kill himself? I cannot recall. The drug addiction makes him crazy, maybe.
It it wasn't. It was he was stuck with a gambling problem. Like he had to like I think it was a mixture of drugs and gambling, and it was because he needed to like win that game with a ridiculous
Oh,
lead.
you're right. Yes.
And so like he pulled out his gun and literally just started shooting everybody in front of him, and then himself at the end because he was gone.
Right. And I always remember the beginning of that. Friday night's a great night for football. That's why I miss kind of the Joe Silver era of movies. Yes, sometimes they were offensive, but they were also like balls to the wall, crazy, like whatever he thought was a fresh idea that was like kind of outrageous. Yeah, he's gonna go for it.
Yeah, and like I think that there was just kind of just this formulaic way of putting together like these gritty, just detective crime films that not only was Lethal Weapon following this trope, so was The Last Boy Scout, and I think there was like a couple other films where it was just like just bonkers bad guys, like anti-hero heroes.
Yeah, and there's always the buddy cops. One is this and one is that, or whatever. Like polar opposites, so they wouldn't get along. But in the end, they team up together. It's crazy that Shane Black set a record for this, $1.75 million for this script, and then broke that record again for I think it was 1.9 he got for The Long Kiss Goodnight. I don't know if any writer has ever been paid more. Maybe the guy who did Showgirls. I think he got paid $3 or something for Showgirls.
Showgirls is a whole other crime that we can talk about.
Yeah, I have never. So we discussed Striptease on the show, which I still think is a legitimate movie, even though Demi Moore is terrible in it. Take all that out, it's still a good movie. I think it's funny that the best part of the movie has nothing to do with the actual nudity.
Yeah.
It does seem like that was a big thing too in the 90s, is not only like how can we outdo each other with outrageous stuff, but let's also outdo each other with paychecks so that it makes the news. Like this is when they started paying actors like $20 million and it was $25 million. Everybody trying to top each other and these huge director deals. I don't really think it's like that now. It seems like, yes, there are known directors, like legendary directors like Spielberg and stuff like that, but it's like, what IP do we own? What franchise do we own? We're not interested in anything fresh and new.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate because it really stagnates the market to where, it's really hard for something new to come out because everyone's always trying to put a sequel or a universal, connected film, which, has its plus and minuses, but like it doesn't always have to be like a direct attachment to something.
Yeah, the requirement to see all these movies for it to make sense is like, ugh. Because I was going through my head about the MCU, and I was like, I think there's like 24 fucking movies. I don't think I want to watch 24, though. So you have to start editing in your head, like, well, do I need this? Do I need that? Do I need this? And I understand now why they have those YouTube catch-up videos. Like, okay, so you need to know this from this, and you only takes you like 20 minutes instead of 20 hours.
Yeah, I think that films just need to focus out of being direct sequels and relevant to each other and just say, hey, you can just occur in the same universe. Like, not every comic book is attached to every comic book. They occur in the same world. And so you can do touchstones like, like ongoing theories where, what's his name? The police officer from Die Hard is the same police officer from Family Matters,
or Turner and Hooch, because he's a cop in that too.
Yeah, like those theories are fun because it's like, they could exist in the same universe and it wouldn't really break anything.
Yeah.
And they could be, alternative stories. It's like, you don't have to make everything a direct sequel, but, that's unfortunate, and that's just where the film industry is right now.
Yeah, well, I was thinking like Jackie Brown. Michael Keaton plays like a supporting role in that, and then he just makes a cameo at the end of Out of Sight. You don't need to see either one to understand it, but he's playing the same character.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny is I was thinking about this. So when Last Action Hero came out, an Italian company found an old movie that had nothing to do with it, wasn't even similar in plot in any way whatsoever, but they slapped on the first Action Hero, and like it was just one of those straight to video pieces of shit. But I think it would have been funny if there was like, hey, the first Boy Scout, you know, something like that, starring like Sam Willis, you know, or somebody like his cousin.
Oh my goodness!
But you could make like a 70s prequel where he's a young cop or whatever before any of this. If you wanted to do a direct-to-video, it's a prequel.
Mm-hmm. Where he saves the president, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yes, that is a good... Yeah, we could do that story. You know, I was thinking like, so after... Is there anything else you want to say about this movie before we go?
No, I think I wrapped up everything I can.
Okay. So his journey, like Mo Money was a big hit, so everybody said, oh, now he's going to be the next, you know, like Eddie Murphy A-lister actor. And people, I don't know if you've noticed or not, and for all of you assholes yelling about woke, there's hardly been any main A-list actors that haven't been white men, so shut the fuck up. But it was like great because it's so rare that an African-American actor or an actress can break over to... white audiences, and Damon was able to achieve that, but I think he really ruined it with Blank Man. I know some people like it. I know someone who said it's their favorite movie. Oh my god, I really think that just destroyed everything.
I think Blank Man is fun for what it is, but there's no way that can be considered a good movie. I think if Blank Man was paired with something else that was more serious, then it wouldn't have dumped the career that it did for him, because I think that, you know, just like a Meteor Man, like it's just a fun little tongue-in-cheek thing.
Yeah.
But if you take it too seriously, you promote it too heavily as like, oh, it's gonna be the new big thing. I'm like, no, don't make it the new big thing. It wasn't that good of a film.
So then he did Major Payne. That did okay, but his final run, and he talks about this in his '98 comedy special. Where he himself was worried because of like Blank Man and Major Payne not making a lot of money, that he just said yes to whatever offered a lot of money. And so he did The Great White Hype, Celtic Pride, and then it finished with our last film, Bulletproof. By the way, I love Great White Hype, but he's kind of in it, but he's more of a support. It's more of a Samuel Jackson movie.
Yes. Most definitely. I think that Great White Hype had some really solid backing to it. Celtic Pride was bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe it was written by Judd Apatow. It just doesn't seem like his kind of movie. It seems like he was paid to write like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But Bulletproof is one of those where, on paper, I can see where they thought this was going to be a decent size hit. It's the buddy cop formula. This time it's flipped though, because... now Damon Wayans is the authority figure, and then he's got a sidekick that's kind of like on the edge of legality, like the way it was at 48 Hours and stuff. And you know, you have Ernest Dickerson, who was a pretty good like B-movie director at this point. I think most people know him from Demon Knight or Juice. And just the storyline seemed like something you could do, you know, on a lower budget, but still bring in the money. And I think it made what it cost, but it was one of those where I think everybody was kind of disappointed, especially after, like, Damon and Adam both have their own flavors they add to their movies, and that was kind of their signature, and still is kind of the signature for Adam, and it's not really here. That's where it falls kind of flat, is because it doesn't really seem to be styled towards anything. It's just flat.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that they had great players in this, but someone else was writing the script, and so everyone was working outside of their specialty. So no one was working in a way that really highlighted their abilities as their character actors that they are. And so you ended up with kind of this middle ground, like some great moments, but for the most part, just like very generic. Could have been anybody in those roles.
Yeah, and Damon, he doesn't even get anything fun to work with. No good dialogue, and it's just, if anything works, it's his camaraderie with Adam. But then Adam has these moments where clearly he was improvising, or he had some notes that he wanted to do. The one thing that kills me in this is whenever he's singing in the shower and his face is all contorted. That to me was funny. But in general, yeah, I just thought it was kind of like a nothing movie. It's fine if you want to play in the background. It burns by pretty fast. I can't imagine what the fucking sequel is. There's a direct-to-video sequel, and I don't even want to go near that.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, but also worried.
Well, here's the thing: is it
Like,
came out like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. That's
Oh.
a long gap.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it.
You know, like what really hurts me the most is that this film, I feel like, has the aspect of like a good Tango and Cash like film. They just casted the wrong characters to play the wrong characters. Like, you know, the character that Damon played is a very like, you know, just straight laced Sylvester Stallone character, not there to be funny, but a couple of good quips. You know, and they just like Damon just didn't really fit that character, but kind of just was shoehorned into it.
Exactly. Maybe they had a development deal with him, and they're like, "We want to burn this out," you know. And you can tell that he didn't want to do any more movies. That he was tired by this point because he doesn't do any movies for like, I think not until like 2003 when he does Marcy X. And you know, he's just and he doesn't really act that much anyway. He did that Lethal Weapon show for a few years. He had his own sitcom for a few years. It just seems like he does what he wants to build up some cash, whatever, and then goes back to retiring and being with his family. And more power to him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, like he had a good run. I mean, it came down to just unfortunate back-to-back films, but like, you know, and that's kind of why I'm glad that Adam Sandler realizes, like, hey, I need to take control of my own movies because I'm not being utilized correctly.
Yeah, I really thought his career was over with after this. Because, remember, there was a long gap between this and Wedding Singer, and it's not like he had SNL to keep him busy, so I was like, what is going on here? And then just absolutely a movie that is geared towards his talents. I mean, it's still, I think, his best movie. And something like that's roaring back, really taking control of your career. Yeah, the one other thing I want to say is I thought it was funny is when this movie was about to come out, they had a big article on the front of our entertainment section in the newspaper about James Caan is back. He's the bad guy in Eraser, and he's the bad guy in Bulletproof. Barely in this movie. I think he did maybe 2 days of shooting. I love that he has that weirdo moment where he rips his wig off, which most actors would be so insecure to do that. And I was like, all right, respect.
Yeah. That's I totally forgot about that scene, but yeah, that was a pretty boss move, and it's rare that you see somebody that's like, yeah, like it's a good bit, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing really else I can say about this. Of the two movies, obviously The Last Boy Scout is better, but it is kind of nihilistic. It's pretty dark, except for the very end. And maybe that's the point, is that these extremely broken people find something to fight for. And I'll say this, the helicopter thing is pretty grotesque and amazing. I'm gonna dance and jig! Dance and jig!
You know, and it's rare that I disagree with you, but for me, I actually enjoyed Adam Sandler and Damon Wayne more than I enjoyed Damon Wayne with Bruce Willis.
Oh, no.
You know, like,
the chemistry is better in Bulletproof. I just thought Last Boy Scout was a little bit more outrageous and crazy. Part of it is also the difference between Tony Scott and Ernest Dickerson. Is Tony Scott is an extremely stylish director who had the money and the visuals, I guess, capability to bring out something that was more dynamic.
True. I guess if I were to like rate it on which one has a better, just full-bodied experience. So like for me, if I were to rate it for food, you know, like I'd say that The Last Boy Scout is like, you know, a fine dining, and going over to, you know, Bulletproof, that's more of just like a nice piece of cheesecake. Like, it's not great for you. It's not doing you any favors, but you're enjoying it.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with an Arby's turnover. All right, so that is it for this episode. Our next one is going to be, what did we say? It was going to be the clones, right? It was going to be the Sixth Day and the One and stuff like that. Or alternate universe. I can't remember what we were going to do.
I can't remember either, but I remember it was either Sixth Day or the One, and it was either an alternate universe or it was going to be like another clone fiasco. So
yeah,
one of those two, if not both of those two. So we'll see.
Yeah. All righty, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.